Good morning, everybody. Uh, Thanks for joining Worship Without Walls. We're just going to do a quick, simple message this morning. A little bit to do with the house we're living in, as most of our messages have been lately. But we've been living in this house a little over 6 months now. We're getting settled in the house. We're starting to do yard work. And the Bruners had an immaculate yard. I can only imagine what it looked like back in the day, but still in excellent condition, and we kind of figured out why it's been in excellent condition. Stacy was working out here digging up some holly bushes and stuff a few weeks, or last week before. She called me out here. She said, "I got something I want you to see." So I went outside, and she's pulling these bricks out of the yard that have kind of made a little walkway, and she said, "I can't get this one out." She dug around underneath it, and one of our pecan trees, the roots had actually grown perfectly around that brick. And wasn't just using that brick, but was using that brick which was locked in place by all of the other bricks as part of its root system. That was pretty neat. So a few days later, I'm trimming up some holly bushes, and there's a holly bush here, and a few feet over there's another holly bush. I cut this one. It doesn't fall over. That's kind of weird. So I cut the other holly bush, and whenever I do, they both fall over. I got to look, and those two holly bushes had actually grafted themselves together. Were holding themselves together. So it goes on. A few days later, we're pulling more bricks out of the yard. Can't get the bricks out. Well, the bricks have the holes going through them. Come to find out, some of those holly bushes and pecan roots had actually grown through the holes, giving it lots of strength. It took 50 years, but in that 50 years, everything was using everything else to strengthen it. The root of this message is when you run into an obstacle, use it to your advantage. Those things didn't just happen overnight. Those holly bushes didn't graft together instantly. Those roots did not go around or through bricks instantly. But once they realized what was taking place, they were using it to their advantage. And we need to do the same thing. And I got a few modern examples of that. You know, the first one I'm going to start with is Stacy and I. We've ran into our share of obstacles, especially in the past 10 to 15 years, things we never foresaw taking place that did, but we wouldn't be where we're at today if it wouldn't have been for those obstacles. As hard as they may have been, we had to get through it together, which strengthened us. Another one I'm going to throw out there is Dennis Lanzano. For those of you that didn't know Dennis was a man from Dublin. Don't know what his childhood was like a lot, but I do know he was a Hispanic boy in Dublin, Texas in the 40s and 50s. That probably wasn't the easiest place to grow up in for him. From there, he went on to become one of the last of the tin can sailors in Vietnam. Spent some time in Alaska and all over the Pacific. Ended up back in this part of the world, and I worked with Dennis a lot. Dennis didn't have a lot of sympathy for kids that were wet behind the ears that weren't very tough. Dennis had lots of expressions and one-liners that I couldn't say during this message, but one I can say is what don't kill you will make you tougher, and he stood behind that. Another modern example of this is my old granddad, Roy. He's just turned 88 years old, and you know what he does for a living? I didn't say what he did, I said what he does. Is he operates a backhoe every day. Now, he was born during the Depression, and he lived in a tent until he was 8 years old. And now he's 88 years old, running a backhoe every day. And his biggest complaint is he can't find hands, especially in the summertime, because they can't handle the heat. Well, let's look back in biblical times. We see the same examples. David just didn't happen to go up to Goliath and say, I wonder what I can do to defeat him and how God can help me. Instead, David walked up there and said, he's not a lion or a bear, and I've defeated them before. This is nothing. You know, Jesus, he wasn't born into royalty. He didn't have a lush lifestyle, per se. He was born into a working family. And he had to travel to Egypt. You know, he was born in a manger. He had to be pretty tough to begin with, too. God didn't set him up just as royalty to begin with. Or how about Paul? Paul was a tax collector. You know what that means? It means he was used to people not liking what he had to say to begin with, and he really didn't care. God didn't put him here to be friends. God put him here to speak the truth. So, I'm going to quote Dennis in this situation. What don't kill you will make you tougher. When you run into an obstacle, use it to your advantage. Learn from it, or strengthen from it. That's all I got. Dear Lord, please just help us when we get to our obstacles to move past, to strengthen, or to use to our advantage. And I just ask these things in your precious name. Amen.